Alright, in this video you're going to learn about some techniques for mapping trails in OpenStreetMap. You will need to have the JASM editor running with remote control enabled in either the Firefox web browser or a Chromium-based browser. This is the JASM editor with Bing imagery loaded, which we have permission to use in OpenStreetMap. This is an area in the National Forest near Copper Mountain in Colorado, which is a ski resort is off here to the west, and this trails across the road. So you can see that clearly in the imagery the trail shows up here. But there's a few problems with using imagery exclusively to map trails. The first is illustrated in this area here, and you can see the trail as disappears into the tree canopy. So that's a problem if you want to know exactly where the trail goes. This is the city of Castle Pines, or at least part of it, again in Colorado, south of Denver. And you can see there's a lot of construction here. So in this case, the imagery capture date, in other words, when the satellite or airplane flew over and took the photo, predates the trail or trails being created. And I happen to know that there are trails here that aren't shown on this imagery. So obviously you can't use imagery if the trails aren't there. And the final reason to look at additional sources beyond imagery is imagery can be inaccurate, and that's a little bit beyond the scope of this video as to what the sources of those inaccuracies are, but safe to say that these do happen and in some cases can be significant. So the first technique we're going to look at is the Strava Global Heatmap. So what is Strava? So Strava is social media for athletes. So you can follow your friends and see where they rode their bike or where they ran or did dozens of other athletic activities. And you can also follow professional athletes and get inspired by the awesome amount of training that they do. So this is Tony Krapicka, ultra runner from Boulder. Usually his bike rides are around 100 miles a day. If he's not out running dozens and dozens of miles. All right, so how do we actually get these you can see these traces where the athlete rode their bike or ran, and we know that the GPS in your phone or your watch is not very accurate, but if we average hundreds of activities by dozens of different athletes, the accuracy becomes very good. So how do we get that into the JASM editor so we can digitize from it or we can map from it? So let's head over to the Firefox web browser first. You want to click the hamburger menu in the upper right and then click add-ons and themes and search for Strava. Let's go. JASM, Strava. So this is what we want. JASM Strava Heatmap has a little Rubik's Cube-like icon. Add to Firefox. Add. And for some reason it doesn't work unless you click this, check this box. Allow this extension to run in private windows. And click OK. So you need to, at this point, create, if you don't already have one, a Strava account. They're free. You don't have to actually even post any runs or rides or any other activities, and make sure you're logged in the Firefox browser. So go to a new tab, search for Strava Global Heatmap. And some info, you can just close out of that. It doesn't, you can block the location if you want. So this is the heat map. It shows where all these different athletes over the last 2 years have, again, primarily bike riding and running, but other activities as well. You can select the activity type, so if you're just interested in some reason, trails where people ride their bike or trails that people run, you can select those, or winter sports. There are some Nordic ski trails that are only open in the winter. In the summer, there's alternate trails in different locations for summer users, so that's handy for that. But we're just going to leave the all box checked. And we're going to go over to this Rubik's Cube-like icon, click it, and we're going to say open in JASM. And then you want to flip over to the JASM editor, and boom, there is your heat map. And then you can digitize or map off of that. I do like to add the tag source : geometry equals Strava Global Heatmap, so that lets other mappers know that a very accurate source has been used, and hopefully they won't change your work to a lesser source. And now if you have a Chromium-based browser, you can do something similar. Click the little puzzle piece for extensions, manage extensions, web store, and actually in Chrome itself, some of that will be a little bit different, but you get the general idea. And click again, JASM, Strava. Click it, add to Brave, add extension. And now you to make sure you're logged in under this browser to Strava, and Strava Global Heatmap in the search box, and from here the process is exactly the same as Firefox. All right. So some limitations to the heat map. It's only updated once a month, and it's a 2-year rolling, currently a 2-year rolling time frame. So brand new trails aren't going to show up immediately, and old trails will linger for a while. So it's best to, in addition, have some firsthand experience to know that the trail actually does exist in its general location, and then use the heat map for precise location. This is an average. Heat maps are inherently averages, so it's a low pass filter, and so curves are rounded off. But I don't think anyone's ever going to get lost because the apex of a switchback is off by a couple meters. And for roads or tracks that are wider than so people can pick a side, that may skew the results. Or if people on a road prefer riding in a certain direction, so a loop where they always go clockwise. If in the U.S. we ride our bikes hopefully on the right-hand side of the road, so that's going to skew it. But as long as you're aware of that, should be fine. Now the second technique is using the USGS 3D elevation program, and you can get this under the imagery menu, USGS 3D elevation program. If it doesn't show up in here, you go to imagery preferences and search for it. I've pre-added it, so it's cached. And I'm going to zoom. Back to the Copper Mountain area. And let's just temporarily turn this off so we get our bearings. Okay, here's that trail in question. Let's turn back on the elevation program data. And here you can see that it shows up I mean, this is actually a hill shade, I should be precise, of the elevation data, but there's the trail through there. So this only works for trails that have been cut into the side of a hill or mountain or some slope, or have worn into the underlying ground, so that there's just some relief between the surrounding terrain and the trail. But it can be a good additional source. This is highly accurate. I've asked the USGS what the horizontal accuracy is. I didn't get an answer, but I would guess it's for the 1 meter product, it's probably half a meter, 1 meter or so, which is very good. So the limitation of that is not the entire country. I mean, obviously, one, this is only for the U.S., and the entire country is not covered currently by the high resolution data. So you get something that's other than the 1 meter post spacing, trails probably aren't going to show up. Incidentally, you can also use this for accurately locating waterways. So oftentimes waterways, that's rivers and streams, are obscured by tree canopy as well. And this, since they are usually cut into the surrounding terrain, they will show up. So you can see the drainage network here. So I hope this video was helpful, and happy mapping.